Our cruise started in Oslo and we flew out 2 days before. We stayed 2 nights in the Radisson Blu Scandinavian, which is quite close to the Royal Palace. Our room was spacious and very comfortable. We had a great view towards the harbour and the fjord. The cocktail bar on the top floor had great views as well. On our full day in Oslo, we start our exploration walking past the Royal Palace, dating from the early 19th century. There are electric scooters for hire parked everywhere, sometimes in neat rows like this, sometimes apparently just abandoned. Oslo's City Hall was built between 1933 and 1950. The Nobel Peace Centre is housed in the former railway station. We've reached Akerbrugge, an old harbour and industrial area which has been transformed into a modern upmarket, leisure, dining and residential area. An anchor from the German warship Blücher, which was sunk in Oslo Fjord in April 1940. The Astrup Fearnley Museum of Modern Art has a cafe where we stopped for a break. Heading back through Akerbrugge, past the City Hall again, and the National Theatre, and nearby we boarded our hop-on hop-off bus. This is the Viking Ship Museum, Oslo's new opera house. The railway station. The following morning we can see our ship from our hotel window. There's time for a stroll up to the palace to watch the changing of the guard. Overnight, Marina sails to Skien in Denmark. Skien is the northernmost town in Denmark, at the point where the Kattegat meets the Skagerrak. It has a fishing fleet and some small shipyards. It's also a holiday resort for many Danes, including on occasions the royal family. It's an easy 20-minute walk into town, past the Swedish Seamen's Church. The Tourist Information Office is in this rather large and impressive baronial-style building. The old town centre was once something of an artist colony, and is now filled with smart cafes, restaurants and so on. Just outside the town is the former royal summer house. Next morning we've returned to Norway and Haugesund. The town centre is dominated by the red brick St Saviour's Church. This was completed in 1901 in the neo-Gothic style. From the church steps you can see our ship, although it's the other side of the Sound. As in many other places, the old fishing wharves are being brought into more modern use. Haugesund claims to be the birthplace of the Kingdom of Norway, since it was near here in 872 that Harald Fairhair, having defeated all the other minor kingdoms in Norway, made his claim to be King of Norway. Next morning we arrive in Flom. Flom is at the head of Arlandsfjord, which is a branch of Sognefjord, the longest and deepest fjord in Norway. The terminus of the Flom Mountain Railway. The original railway station is now a cafe. We have pre-booked a minibus tour with Flom Travel to Borgund Stave Church. Our first stop is the Segerstein viewpoint overlooking Arlandsfjord. We have a comfort and refreshment stop in the old village centre of Liadalsuri. Eventually we reach Borgund Stave Church. This was built sometime around 1180 and is remarkably well preserved. Built entirely of wood, the church contains some intricate carving. A gallery runs all the way around the outside of the church. Over the road is the modern visitor centre, which includes a decent cafe. We arrive back in Flom in late afternoon. At 5 o'clock, Marina sets off to sail through Aurlandsfjord and Sognefjord. Next morning we're sailing into Geirangafjord, where we stop briefly at Hellesylt to let off some passengers who are going on tours, who'll meet us later in Geiranger. We've arrived in Geiranger, at the head of Geirangafjord. Costa Pacifica is already moored and tendering. Marina will have the benefit of the sea walk, a movable jetty which comes out to form a pier alongside the ship. So no tendering for us, we can just walk ashore when we're ready. Geiranger is only a small village, and with a large camping site at the head of the fjord, it gets extremely busy. Next morning we're arriving in Ålesund. We've booked a full-day excursion with Norway excursions to the Troll Road. Our first stop is a viewpoint overlooking Størefjord. The remains of an ancient stone shelter that was used by travellers many centuries ago. The next stop is in Stordal and these restored old farm buildings. Old Stordal Church dates from 1789. We had a comfort break at the ferry stop at Linge. The ferry from here crosses the fjord to Eidsdal. Our next photo opportunity is the 5-metre wide gorge at Gudbrandsdjuvert. At lunchtime we have reached the Trollstigen Plateau, 858 metres above sea level. From the viewing platforms you can see some of the 11 hairpin bends on this amazing road. On our drive down, we stop to take a look back up. On our way back to Ålesund, we stop briefly to look at the so-called Troll Wall, a very steep cliff. Next day we're in Kristiansund. We've booked a ship's tour on the Atlantic Ocean Road. This string of causeways and bridges connecting various islands was opened in 1989 with a view to improving communications locally, specifically tourism. This is a particularly wild stretch of the Norwegian coast. In fact, it was along here earlier in the year that the Viking Sky cruise ship got into difficulties. Our next stop is Kverner's Stave Church. Dating from about 1300, this is considered one of the younger of Norway's surviving stave churches. This plaque commemorates the rebuilding in 1776. Next day we are in Bodø, which is just north of the Arctic Circle. Most of the town was destroyed in May 1940 in a German bombing raid. Bodø's cathedral was completed in 1959 on the site of the old church, which was lost during that bombing raid. It is built of concrete, and inside is light and spacious with no supporting columns. Over the road is the town hall. The Coastal Express ferry leaving northbound. This runs 365 days of the year. Time for our departure northbound now. We're passing lots of new developments along the waterfront. And there's the control tower of Bodø Airport. The furthest north we come on this cruise is Harstad, 68 degrees north. We've taken a ship's tour, which starts with a drive around the town, such as it is. But the main point of the tour is Trondenes Church. The oldest part of this church probably dates to about 1250, but it wasn't finished until 1435. This part of Norway consists mainly of islands, some of them very big. The island that Harstad is on is the fourth largest in Norway. And so the journey south begins, and we have a full day at sea before we reach Bergen, where we are berthed next to P&O's Ventura. We took a stroll around the old harbour, where the Italian sail training ship Amerigo Vespucci was in port. The old wooden Hanseatic warehouses of the Bruggen. We stopped for an expensive Norwegian coffee with a view back over the harbour. Viking Sky is in front of Marina, and it's showing no visible signs of its mishap earlier this year. The Coastal Express ferry coming in. Bergen is the southern terminus of its route. Late afternoon, and Marina is on its way back to Southampton and home for us.